So, Mitch, across the board, he's a flawed candidate, as I see it. Your thoughts?
Absolutely. And we in Florida are used to Rubio and some of this, let's say, sleight of hand vocabulary. What's interesting is there's a common thread here. When he's talking about welders, and of course, as we all know, you can't ever get infrastructure really cooking out of this Republican Congress, which we desperately need. But they also talked about their tax plans, and most of the people on the stage, their tax plan meant, and they said, eliminating the IRS. Well, we know that's not possible. That's ridiculous. So between saying eliminate the IRS, welders, blah, 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 the same echo chamber, the Republican echo chamber, what's interesting is the fact that obviously these are people who are playing for the nomination. They're speaking to a very narrow audience of Republican supervoters who are even more conservative than the typical Republican voter. They're very anti-establishment. They're not playing long ball. They're playing short-term ball, trying to get the nomination. Interestingly, Bush, to his credit, actually, is put together more or less a general election primary strategy, where he basically figured out that if he can't win the primary his way, which doesn't look like he's going to, but if he could, that makes him a stronger general election candidate. Rubio's whole thing with his foot in the Tea Party originally from 2010, now he's a foot in both worlds, which is positive for him in a primary, negative for him in a general, same as his immigration plan or lack of it. Mm-hmm. They're playing just to a very narrow field.
Okay. I've always maintained the position Republicans do not want immigration reform. This is what they've jumped on Donald Trump, both Bush and Rubio. Bush saying this in New Hampshire about deporting all the people that Trump wants to get rid of.
500,000 people, basically, I think, would double the number of people processed through our judicial system. It's not possible.
It's not possible. I think it is possible, but it would be a heavy lift. How does this play in Republican circles, Mitch?
Well, obviously, the fact that he's, a little more moderate on immigration, again, goes to a general election strategy. He's been a governor. He's more realistic. Remember that Rubio was part of that Gang of Eight, and as soon as the Tea Party came down on him, he moved away from that very quickly and abandoned them. Their immigration plans, Rubio and most of the people there, with the exception of Bush and Kasich, are totally unrealistic. Remember, the Republicans did an autopsy, the RNC. And the greatest piece that came from that was we have to attract Hispanics. Then Donald Trump rolled along with his wall, and Mexico is going to pay for it, and made that more difficult. That, I would contend, is a greater reason, at least at this moment, that others on that stage were unwilling to attack the one Hispanic, Rubio, although Cruz is, but Rubio is the sizable candidate compared, because they want to win the general election. They're trying their best, but I also think as it gets closer, candidates, know no bounds. And if they want to win, they're going to have to attack him.
Is Bush dead? I mean, is his campaign roadkill?
I really think I think it is. First of all, I think the quick answer is yes. Will he go on? Yes. Does he have a lot of money? Yes. Is he a bad guy? No. But I think that this is not his father's Republican Party. It's not even his brother's Republican Party. The very fact that he got a guy like Bob Dole, who actually is not a bad guy. I actually met him once, found him to be incredibly great, entertaining person with a good sense of humor and a very decent guy. But they kind of, literally rolled him out. And if there's a face of not about tomorrow but yesterday, it's Dole. They just don't really get it. And even though he had a debate coach who said things like "Don't answer questions directly," and that's an actual exact quote from the paper that he said he was told. This party has moved away from him in a very extreme way, and he cannot adapt.
Okay. Is it a good political strategy for the Republicans? They're going to have to walk this fine line of not attacking Rubio. But if he says when he throws this welder thing out and wages out, and he's totally wrong, isn't that raw meat to the rest of these guys?
It will, but remember, this is a really weak field. It was originally heralded as one of the strongest fields ever. Mm-hmm. I think 2012's field they called stronger, and you see how well that went. It's a weak field. They don't know how to respond. They're going to have to figure it out as the field, narrows down. But yes, they're going to have to attack him. Interestingly, the Miami Herald ran a story today on his expense account. But what they came up with was new information showing a lot of little charges, but all for incredibly personal use. All of it. So do I think that will be fodder? Short term, yes. Long term, maybe not. But it keeps stirring the pot. But the best they could do is just, leak stuff and make it as if they have clean hands. They're afraid.
This is the interesting thing, and I'm holding up my wallet, Mitch. You can't see it. I'm pulling out a credit card right now. Okay, there's one credit card. I'm pulling out another a debit card from another account, and I'm pulling out a business credit card right here. You mean to tell me that it's just too hard for Marco Rubio to differentiate what is ethical, what is convenient, and what would not be questioned? Did he actually think that using a credit card from the RNC was not going to be questioned? Did he actually think that it was going to be easier to do it this way? That tells me he's got a disregard for authority. It tells me that he is not an organized guy. He can't fly ahead of the aircraft. He doesn't have plan B. I think he is terribly flawed. I think he's horribly immature. I think he's a good communicator. And unfortunately, that's scoring him well. But when you listen to what comes out of his mouth, it's not leadership, and it's flawed. So it would seem to me that if Bush really wants to go for the jugular, this is his opportunity, isn't it?
You're exactly right, but remember, Bush is so rusty. Even when he's been around for a while, he's still just, it's almost as if, political 3-in-1 oil still won't loosen him up. It just doesn't happen. He's not built that way. He's an old model, so to speak, and there's no adjustment. And I agree with you. Rubio is a good communicator, and so is Cruz. But you're also looking better as a communicator when the rest of them are such poor ones.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's going to be interesting to see how aggressive they get on Rubio with this misinformation, with these lies, what the mainstream media does. I think this is material for the next debate, and I think that if Rubio has any character whatsoever when it comes to the truth, he will correct himself, or he will cite his source to the American people as to why he thinks we have to support vocational education because welders make more than philosophers. It's simply not true.
I think we will collectively not be holding our breath for correction.
Mitch Ceasar, always good to visit. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Ed.
Our Florida connection and expert on politics in that part of the country, Mitch Ceasar, and great friend.